show, we talk about World Challenge and some of the drama with the Mustangs. We then talk about Grand Am and some changes in the race operations department. And we finish the show up with the SCCA CRB quarterly meeting. Welcome to the Insider Report. Welcome to another episode of the Insiders Report. I'm your host, Errol Tucker, and joining me as usual, or actually we do have a little bit of a change list to go around. We have Peter Keene. How you doing, Peter?
Excellent, Tucker.
And we have now Jim Daniels. Jim Daniels is replacing Bill Wood. How you doing, Jim?
Doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Great, great. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jim Daniels, he has a long history in club and pro racing here in the United States. One of the, can I say one of the architects of Spec Miata, Jim?
Absolutely. The Godfather, I guess some people call
it. Oh, good
it.
God. Here we go with that story.
Long-time SCCA member and raced a lot of different types of cars. We're probably best known as competing with Mazdas as one of his brands. And it's only fitting that we have you on this show, Jim, because one of the first topics is one of the hottest topics right now in racing, which is what is going on in World Challenge with the Mustangs. As many of you know, at the Mid-Ohio event, the Mustangs competitors parked their cars, and we actually have a little video here that Justin Bell threw up on the internet to kind of bring some of you up to speed as to what's been going on, and then we're going to comment on this video.
Firstly, on behalf of all the drivers, teams, and hard-working mechanics that run Ford Mustangs in the World Challenge Series, we love racing these cars, and we wish we were out there right now, but we had to make a pretty big statement because, believe it or not, the Mustang 302 is the baseline car for this series. And as everyone knows, all the Mustangs had a very enjoyable, fast-paced, and successful start to the series. But for some reason, over the course of the season, the car has pretty much been rendered obsolete. For example, yesterday in race 1, no Mustang got any higher than 10th, and that was with one of the fastest drivers of the series. And what does that tell you? It means that for some reason, the parity in this series is not equal to all. We're not asking to be faster than anyone else. All we want to do is be able to race on an even and fair playing field. So this movement to come in at great personal expense for a lot of these teams, people don't get paid to be here. We do it out of passion and love for racing and put on a good show. But the reason it's done is that hopefully, and our expectation is that someone very senior at Ford Motorsport will now engage with SCCA and the World Challenge Series to ensure that the Mustang remains a viable and affordable and fast car in this series. That's all anyone wants. And then next time you see us, we'll be right up at the top. Thank you.
So now, you know, Bill, Jim, you actually had a lot to do with bringing these cars to World Challenge. Justin says they basically did this to try to get some attention. What do you say?
Well, he certainly got some attention. I have all respect in the world for that guy, but some of the things, I'm polar opposite, having wrote the rules to bring the first Mustangs to World Challenge, and fitting 2 years ago to this race was the first race that we had an invite. We brought 7 Mustangs to Mid-Ohio. Series.
I remember seeing you at that event, as a matter of fact.
That's right. The series was so nice. They knew the cars wasn't going to be competitive, and the Acuras were much more prepared at that state. And they gave them their own race, gave them their own podium, their own prize money, trophies, just to invite them. And have, in my opinion, from being the Ford guy, has been over backwards to make everyone feel welcome. I have problem with some of his statements. If you walk through the paddock, there's preparation, there's talent, there's strategy. When those three things overlay on one team, they're going to be fast, like the Acura team. All right. You look at Aaron in Leo's car, completely bone stock, arguably down on horsepower because running the motor as it comes, no preparation whatsoever, but he's an exceptional driver. So I don't like talking bad about any drivers. It's not what I mean to do, but I know from where I'm sitting, when a car is built to the preparation level of the rule book, like I'm capable of doing it, and I stick someone in that car like Billy Johnson or Eric Foss, they're going to have to run a 35 millimeter restrictor plate. So, the facts in that video and the rumors surrounding that anonymous press release, which is cowardly. I don't know why anybody would do that. If you're mad about something, state you're mad about something. You can't half offend the fans.
Right.
People that lost on that day was the fans. They bought tickets. They want to sit on a hill and watch a Mustang race a Camaro. And instead, we're playing all these politics. But
so, let's address some of those rumors. So there's rumors out there that these guys got these restrictor plates thrown on them right before they were getting ready to go out. What's going on with that?
I really want to. I mean, there's a couple things. So like Jim said, I really like the guys that, are part of Ford Racing or whatever, but that video is just complete bunk. I mean, if anybody, when I first saw that video and I went and kind of did my research, if anybody even looks into it, it's obvious that car didn't score any points at all at Mosport. Okay. And then it never had a time all weekend. He starts at the back of the pack and runs 3 laps and has a mechanical in the first race. He never even had a qualifying time. So their weekend was shot.
That's right.
And then, so then it's a monsoon downpour. They spin 2 cars on the parade lap, so they park them all. Well, the funny thing is the truth of the matter is Justin's championship hopes were dashed. So with a 4-race stretch, he really hasn't gotten any points. He's still 6th in points. Obviously, they had a chance. Now they don't. And it's unfortunate. I mean, common knowledge.
Well, here's the facts. And the facts on that was last year, the Mustangs got to run no restrictor plate for half the season. We had to chase them around in our older Mustangs. So the first thing everybody had to do was buy a Boss 302 to be competitive.
That's right.
That was a concession that Mr. Bell says has not been made for the class. Then they put a 49 millimeter restrictor plate on the car, and it still won the rest of the races. Won 10 of 12 races last year, an equal split between no restrictor plate and 49 millimeter restrictor plate.
Right.
This year they started off with the same plate, 49 millimeters. For Mosport, the series again doing something for them. They gave them a 60 millimeter restrictor plate for Mosport. They were 15 mile an hour faster than the Camaro, about 12 mile an hour faster than the Acras. Unfortunately, Kia came in there and had the best straight line speed. But still in that race, you had Ford's doing very well. What's interesting is the competitor saying that 50 car was smoking and was down on straight line speed compared to the rest. And then I just can't fathom that they would bring that car with that motor 5 weeks later. 5 weeks to prepare that car between Mosport and Middle Howe.
Right.
They bring it with the same motor. Then the motor lets go, and we say it's because of restrictor plate. And to answer your question, Errol, they knew they was going to have that 52 millimeter restrictor plate. And here's my beef with it. When they told them they were going to go from a 49 to a 60, not a single team complained that they couldn't get the cars tuned.
Right.
What do you think about that? All right, with more time. Now, I'm not saying that they had all 5 weeks to change restrictor plate. I'm saying they had the same amount of time to tune as they did going from a 49 to 60. They brought him back to a 52, still bigger than they ran all last year, and they ran those cars. Nobody else had any problems with them. It was hot. Cars get hot. You have to be able to tune.
You reference, so one thing you do is you reference the press release. It's on autoblog.com. It's that press release that you'll be able, you folks out there, if you want to do some research, you'll be able to see some of the stuff that's been going on. But in that press release, they show some damaged exhaust pipes and the exhaust manifolds from these Mustangs, saying that it's creating a lot of heat. What do you have to say about that?
Well, this is racing, all right? And the Mustangs that we built, we don't use the factory Ford radiators. We don't use the factory Ford oil coolers. We can do a better job. Rule book says you have to have an oil cooler, you have to have a radiator. We cannot blame the series or another competitor for their legal interpretation of the rule book or application of the rule book. If they choose to run XYZ radiator and everyone else is getting their radiators from Lee Duffy, or we getting our radiators from Lee Duffy and do a better job, how is the series at fault for that?
Exactly.
I don't understand that. What I do understand is we had a hurt car at Mosport, and we had a rain race that we pull out of, hurting the fans, taking advantage of the fans, when it really doesn't line up. So on that Sunday's race, they already had a 52 millimeter restrictor plate, which is bigger than they ran all year, except for the 60 millimeter restrictor plate they let them have at Mosport. All right. For Sunday, now here's a series that Mr. Bell says is not willing to help them. And I got one more point about who he's trying to run this up the flagpole to. But the series that's not trying to help him at the race says, okay, we hear you, we want to do something for you, but with no data. There was no data to substantiate that they needed to do anything. Right. They did this to appease the competitors. They give them a 54 millimeter restrictor, and they say, wow, you're giving us this to us so late we can't tune for it. I just don't buy it.
Peter, you're close to a lot of the rules makers in SCCA. I know you sit on the competition racing board for SCCA club side. I'm sure you're close to some of the guys on the pro side. What have you been hearing as far as what SCCA may or may not do?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that they're, I don't know that they're going to give that much concessions. I think Jim's right that really, to be honest with you, how Jim's laid it out is exactly what I've heard. The only difference I've heard is that, there's some chassis tuning that needs to go on with the Ford, and that's why they gave them the 60 at Mosport, and then essentially Ford promised that they would have the chassis development done by Mid-Ohio, and that's why it went down to a 52. Well, when they all showed up at Mid-Ohio, none of the chassis work had been done. So, I mean, whose really fault is that? Here's a series that's working with them, trying to give them a good package. I mean, to be honest with you, that video that Justin shot they might as well be running for president. It's so bad, to be honest with you. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so out of the box and I don't know whose idea that was, but it's ridiculous the way they're moaning. I mean, and they must know in today's media market, the truth is going to come out, and it's just going to make them look bad.
Right.
So that's all I have to say. That.
Well, guys, I think who really got hurt here. I think who really got hurt here were those fans at Mid-Ohio who really wanted to see a really great competitive, World Challenge event. So that sounds good. Hopefully they'll get this act worked out.
One point on there, Errol.
One quick point before we go to break.
One quick. I want to give a shout out to Mark Wilson. Unlike what the Ford was characterized in that Bell video, Mark is at every race. He's intricately involved in this since day one. They didn't need to pull this stunt to get Ford's attention when the Ford guy and engineers are right there in the pits living it with them. And I don't think this was anything that Ford had to do. This was these teams basically pulling a schoolyard prank.
Exactly.
Gotcha. All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about our next topic. We'll be right back. The racing world just suffered a tremendous loss with the passing of a fantastic announcer and television host, Tom Natchew. Tom was best known for being the voice of World Challenge Racing for many years. He also was the host of Dream Car Garage and Sports Car Revolution on Speed Television. I know I speak for the rest of the racing community when I say that our prayers and our thoughts go out to the family at this time, and that we're truly going to miss this announcing, television, and internet personality and legend. Welcome to another episode of Racing No Filter. Joining me in sunny California, Bill Wood, and down in sunny Florida, Peter Keene.
We're going to take a look at some of the products HPD has created for the 2012 Honda Civic, and specifically we're going to show you how to install an adjustable sway bar.
Until then, folks out there, you take care.
Want to keep up with all the racing action at the track? Well, download the new GoRacingTV iPhone and Android app. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to the Insiders. So this past weekend, Grand Am was at the Glen, and it's always fun when Grand Am is at the Glen. And it looks like Star Works was able to get a double podium. I'm going to throw this right over to you, Peter. You're an engineer, consultant for the Spirit of Daytona team. Sorry about you guys and how it ended up, but it must have been pretty exciting for that double win for Star Works.
Yeah, well, I'd first like to say, it was another tough one for Spirit of Daytona. I think we had them covered. We ran the second fastest lap in the last practice, and we were on 58 lap old tires. If anybody knew that, they'd have crapped themselves. So a fluke deal. Somehow we broke both inner axles. I've never seen that. That's probably $14,000 worth of axles that disintegrated on lap 2 of the race. So we're a little bit perplexed, but we'll get it fixed and be ready to go for Montreal. So, but yeah, hey, those Star Works guys, they sure whine like babies, kind of like the Ford Mustang guys in World Challenge for a long time. And, I hate to say it.
But they still put on a show, though. They still put on a show.
Well, I agree with that. But anytime we go to some place and you need some horsepower, those Fords sure seem to be at the front. So,
come on, guy, you have to know this is pro racing. Pro racing is what you do on the track, and it's also the politicking, right?
Well, the funny thing is, you know, me and Jim aren't real shy. So, you know, I had Oz Negri in the line for the bathroom the other day, and I'm like, all right, go ahead, just tell the poor crip what's the truth. What's wrong with the front ends of those Riley, you know, that you can't get them to turn? And he's like, oh, it's mechanical, this and that. You know, I'm like, well, so there's not an aero difference, you know, because I believe, honestly, that Gainsco Riley chassis Corvette is probably the fastest car in the paddock. Now, they've had a hellacious year, just luck and, you know, just problems. They've had a terrible year, but, you know, day in and day out, that 99 car is probably the fastest car in the paddock. So, you know, I have a hard time believing it's the chassis. But essentially, you know, I mean, Peter Barron does a good job, and I think that, you know, he might not be as, you know, well-funded or well-developed as some of the teams in the paddock. And, you know, it's taken him this long to start to figure out that Riley chassis. And good God, can Bourdais make it go? I mean, he is, he is just, you know, I always thought Ryan Dial was an excellent driver. You know, he's one of the guys, he can climb in any S-box and, you know, get it to the front or at least be competitive, you know. And, I mean, Bourdais seems to have taken it a little bit further along. So, and Ryan wins at Watkins Glen, but I mean, you know, those cars are strong. Those Ford motors are strong. So,
well, Sebastian, is like what we're talking about in the Mustangs. When a driver shows up, all bets are off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking what you said. There's not many times that anyone's going to say we just got beat. You rarely ever hear someone say we just got beat. They may on TV, but not when you pass them in the bathroom. I had one for you as an educated viewer and fan. Why is it that Ganassi car, whenever they're behind the 8 ball, let's put it politely, and there's a caution, we have an extra lap here or there, and all of a sudden they erase more laps down under cautions in those scenarios than any other team? Is there a statistic on that?
I don't know.
Are you saying there's some favoritism going on there, Jim?
You're setting me up there, Jim, because I mean, I think that's a good question. That's a question I'd like to ask some of the guys at Grand Am here for the last couple weekends. Or, you know, I mean, the rain shortened race at Homestead killed us, and that was a bad scenario, you know. And Mr. Pruitt was screaming on the radio he didn't have a wiper. Well, we're right back to race prep. I'm sorry you didn't have a wiper, but the rest of us sure did. So, and, I mean, I think it's cost Spirit of Daytona a couple sets of headsets and a couple of radios, because I've sure chucked some stuff on some of the calls. You know, you're right that, you know, they let Ganassi at the 6 hours at the Glen late in the race. You know, he's a lap down, he gets his lap back by the way-by, and so we go for a four-lap caution, and, you know, the series lets him catch back up to the back of the DP field, which now he's on the lead lap at the back of the DP field. And Pruitt does what Pruitt does, is drive to the front, which, I mean, I don't blame him for that. So, and then again at Indy, you know, we're on the lap 3 of the caution. And if anybody knows Grand Am, you're not supposed to do wave-bys or splits or anything on lap 3 of a caution. And, I mean, that's another headset it cost me. Here's you know, the 01 car.
So I hear that, you know, so it's a good thing that we bring this up, because I hear that, you know, Grand Am has actually made a few changes, a few additions in their operations department, because a couple people have been questioning some of these calls.
Well, and I was going to get there quickly. I mean, honestly, Earl, I think it's all water under the bridge. NASCAR has brought in Richard Buck, and he's going to assist Grand Am and, you know, becoming more consistent with the calls. So from what I heard this weekend, you know, I was getting on the elevator going to the thing, and there was a gentleman I've never met Richard Buck, so I don't even know what he looks like, but there was a gentleman getting off the elevator when I was getting on there, and he's like, you know, I don't have a problem with anything that these guys at Grand Am are doing. We just got to do it by the rule book. So I think I had my first brush with Richard Buck. I just didn't know it at the time, and that was at practice on Friday. So according to Troy, you know, the team owner of Spirit of Daytona, it was the best drivers meeting ever. Essentially, the procedure is going to be what the book says, and if they got problems with the book, they're going to fix the book. So anybody that can read knows what's going to happen.
Racing according to the rule book.
That is correct.
That's going to be something very interesting, isn't it?
You know what? They should take a page. Racing needs to take a page out of all other sports. It doesn't always mean something's bad. It means the chemistry is off. You know, racing is the least to change. They keep everything's ingrained. Guys stay the longest. It's only the drivers that turn over and the sponsors that turn over. But in the management of these series, and you just look at the other types of sports, and when things things are just not working exactly like they need to work, you just move some people around. It's not a negative. It's a positive if it's done right.
And that's like
some fresh eyes on the situation.
And that was one of the things, like even, now that when they pick up the pace car, then even you can hear pace car communication now. It was a lot, during the race, it was a lot clearer instruction, So, I mean,
Gotcha.
I think it's water under the bridge. Hopefully the tides have turned, and, I know everybody was, ready to kill people when we left Indy, and then this weekend everybody was happy. So hopefully that all works out.
Good deal. All right, gentlemen, we're gonna.
One more point. They need a new award. We have the hard charger and the pole sitter and all this. They need to make an award who throughout the year made up the most laps under yellow. If they get a sponsor for that, if they get a sponsor for that, we'll have a statistic.
You're really just trying to get me going.
We're gonna take another quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the SCCA's CRB meeting that Peter attended. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Insiders. So we're going to talk about SCCA and it's pretty much a quarterly CRB face-to-face meeting. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, we do it. Usually it's been quarterly in the past, due to try and, the things have been running pretty smooth, but to try and, be conservative on the dollars, we haven't really had this meeting in a couple of years, but due to some turnover, Tony Avi, a great Trans Am racer, is now on the CRB. So, and just with the consolidations of and a Formula Continental, Formula Ford rewrite, there just was a lot of issues that we just needed to go and hash out.
You guys were in Kansas City 2 weeks ago. So, what was some of the interesting stuff that came out of that meeting that we can look forward to?
Well, there's a couple of big issues that the ones that show them stock and touring consolidation, which Showroom stock and touring, we all need to face it, was hurting with the car counts or whatever, and something needed to be done. I wasn't a big proponent of consolidation, but now that we're doing it, essentially I think it's going to be a good thing, because we've thrown all the cars up in the air and made them land in 4 buckets. And so I think they're all going to be, classed correctly. The other thing that we've done, and, that I had to get CRB buy-in, is we're going to slow STO down to, a little bit, so guys with a T1 car can now go STO racing, and nobody needs to build a $50,000 motor to be STO racing. So Peter, I think some good things are going to happen. But
Peter, I think you guys are doing a great job. I got Mustang clients. We're going to the runoffs with a slew of Mustangs, T2 and T3 cars. All of them rejuvenated by these rules and the mix-up of those rules. And like we talked about in the last segment, it's mixing it up to find out the chemistry and the formula and keeping it from being stale, just like we talked about with the Grand Am management. I think you guys did a great job on that. I'll be at the runoffs as a result, and we have a whole new crop of drivers. Got Lance Stewart and Pratt Cole and Eddie Zabinski all coming with a T2, T3 formats, and those guys were kind of out of club racing until we started shifting this stuff around. And the big one, I'm going to put it on everyone's radar right now in D Sports Racer land. The big one is a Scott Tucker rocket ship that is in the wind tunnel. That is going to be it will set the new track record for SCCA any class at this race. That's my prediction.
And I've been trying to keep that quiet. That's what I'm. And I guess coming out of that meeting, it was a very good meeting or whatever. But I agree, Jim. I've been keeping that Scott Tucker DSR thing quiet because I want them to get shocked. I think them old guard SCCA that They always want, what it is what it is, right up until they get their ass kicked. And I think that's coming. And then it's going to be, how did we let this happen? We got to protect our old guys. So
That's right. And it's just
that's
like
that DSR thing's going to be kind of funny.
And it's just like we talked about with the Mustangs. There's a rule book, and someone's going to build to that rule book, and his name's Scott Tucker.
All right, guys.
Exactly.
So I was looking at the entry list, and since we're talking about this, is kind of shifted over to the runoffs. I'm going to throw something out there. Spec Miata entries are way down in the runoffs. Why? Jim?
Well, I can easily. Can I answer that first,
Yes,
Jim, before the Godfather of Spec Miata?
Go ahead.
Well, essentially, I hate to say, I honestly, if you look at that who's who on I think they're up to 16 or 18 cars. There's not a unprepped, unwell driven car in the field. I don't believe. All the top guns are there. The other thing is I honestly believe there's so much Spec Miata racing throughout the country. You can go get you some all year long. You don't need to spend the money and spend the week to go to the runoffs and get you some. But the guys that are serious are there. So, and the other thing is, if you're a big dog, I can't say that in the Southeast because it's so strong. But if you're in flyover country and you're the big Spec Miata dog, you better strap on a big set to go to Road America and think you're going to run up front. So you can stay the big dog at home.
Yeah,
so,
and there's a theme here. There's a theme here. The theme is mixing it up in chemistry. The whole reason we got Spec Miata and it's taken off is they got new people in and not the old timers. Unfortunately,
I agree.
Unfortunately, these guys they don't have that social part of club racing ingrained in them. Spec Racer Ford, Formula V, those guys go there for the social part of that, and half for years. That's just how it was in old school for you and I both, Peter. But this group is like, it's the runoffs. I can't win it. I'll add 3 more races in my division. I'm gonna do an enduro with a buddy. It's not an indication of the class as a whole whatsoever. It's an indication of this race is not that important to the back market guys.
But let me address that. Is it possible that because Spec Miata has just gotten so out of hand in reference to the level of car prep and the level of engine development that you need, that now it's become less attractive to the masses than it was before?
I think it's a value right now. Jim Drago has only raised his cars $1,000 in price from $41,000 to $42,000. So I mean, if you look at it relative, that's less than inflation is running right now. So it's not a big deal. But if you want to talk car count, every 99 in the country is going to be there. So it's going to be good for those guys. But I think, in all honesty, kidding aside, it's just that guys this mentality of these racers is, okay, I did the runoffs. I would rather stay out here on the West Coast or down in Southeast.
Right, gotcha.
I can do 3 more enduros. Let the big guys go try to win the championships. And that's great for this class because we want people to not be discouraged because they can't compete at the big races. We want to have a way for them to have fun out in the divisions. And Spec Miata is satisfying that.
And I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that completely. And, the other thing, Jim, is I like to tout is STU and ST Light. I mean, ST Light's not going to run for a national championship this year. They are going to have their own podium. But, I mean, you look at those lists. There's a couple old dogs that are in those fields, but most of them are guys that we've sucked out of other clubs or or doing track days or whatever. I think that's just going to.
And not everything is going to work. B-Spec is taking off slower than we all wished.
Yeah,
but here's the deal. We love our old sports cars. The Spec Miata is going to be an old sports car that's been racing forever one day as well. Right. We have to keep trying this chemistry changes. Some things work, some things don't work. But if we stay the same, then we, as an SCCA club, we're just going to feed everyone else because that's where they're going to go.
Sounds good. Well, Jim, I have to say, thanks for being on the show for our first time out, and you're going to be a regular with us, so we're going to be looking forward to doing some more Insiders with you.
I look forward to it. I really appreciate it, you guys having me on.
Are you going to let me hijack here?
I was going to say, Peter, of course, this is your hijack moment like you normally do.
Right.
Tradition.
I just got 2 topics. One, I welcome Jim to replace Bill Wood, but I don't believe Jim could replace Bill Wood's wood. So I'm sure he might try, but that's just off the record. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. And then the second thing is, I know this is no NASCAR none of the time.
They don't call me short stack for nothing.
There you go. So, and I know this is no NASCAR racing none of the time or something like that, but good God, if anybody watched the last couple of laps of that race yesterday, from Watkins Glen, I mean, that's road racing at its best. I'd like to see more of it. Marcus Ambrose, from third on the last lap to winning the thing, and I don't know, that was just an unbelievable. That's watching guys dig down deep, add a little oil on the racetrack and dig down deep and try and win the thing. And I mean, that was 3 guys giving it their all, and it went Marcus's way. But
with the decline of NASCAR, boy, they needed that, because how many races have we seen won by Jack Roush or the super duper crew chief for the Lowe's car? Where they got shocks and all these special parts. But that race yesterday, I don't care who had the special shocks on the car. Driver won that race, and that's what the fans want to see, is hustling. Those cars were all sideways. Maybe they need to oil the track now.
So deep down, are you saying that you want to see them continue to turn left and right?
I say that I think that they need to do green. They need to do a green-white checker and damp the track, and that's the new rule. Every track at Daytona, every track.
I don't care if they're turning left or turning left and right, but good God, to see guys dig down and want to win races like that—that's what it's all about. I mean, those guys are all rich guys. You don't have to dig. Keselowski's kind of young and dumb, but he's a great racer, and I mean, Marcus is he brought a little Australian touring car to America yesterday, and it's just good to see those guys, and nobody's pissed off. They all went, they all congratulated each other, and they know that they were just trying to get it done. So
good deal. All right, gentlemen. So we'll be back in another 2 weeks. This is going to be an every 2-week deal, and we'll talk about the next topics coming up. We'll be right on the cusp of the NASA championships, which will be coming right up, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our next show.
Is NASA running a race on the Mars with that new buggy? Is that what's going on? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I know you're a NASA fan, Peter. So, all right, gentlemen, thanks again for joining me. And folks, as you know, as always, you can tune in to Go Racing TV for all your club racing needs. We have a lot of racing at the club level from Canada, U.S., and now we have a large library of our British and Scottish races that are now on Go Racing TV. So jump on there, enjoy, and until next time, you take care.